Welcome to Grid Live Wrap-Up. The Daytona 500 is completed. 500 miles. We will recap and follow up on any changes in the results. Formula E, first doubleheader of 2025, saw two past champions take the first win of 2026. Toyota once again swept the World Rally Championship podium at Rally Sweden. Is this the Toyota season? Welcome. Grid Live Wrap-Up on the air. We have Kobe Lambert from Grid Tonight, Matthew Bro from GridNetworkTV.com, article coming up later in the evening, and Tanner Smith from the Pitbox Press, editor of the Pitbox Press. I'm Joe Samniego. A big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, Crystal, and Nico, newest person to invest in us through Patreon. Link in the video description to get onto our Patreon page and invest in us. Also, Jason M. earlier today gave us a super chat, so he'll be up to number 3 on the leaderboard. So if you want to give us a super chat, we'll thank you on the air, and of course add your name or a number to your name right here on the Grid Network for all our programs for the opening and conclusion of each program. Now, of course, Daytona 500 opening the season, 500 miles, no overtime, but we still had 2 big crashes, reducing the number of cars crossing the finish line to just one car, the winning car. Tyler Reddick, after a winless 2025 season, in fact, the last time he won was that last lap pass in Homestead to get in the championship 4. So it's been quite some time for him to get a win. Considering all of the distractions, the emotional challenge of everything with his newborn and the health complications, now it's all in the past. The present, he is your 2026 Daytona 500 champion. What a moment for him. Everyone involved in that organization to leave with the points lead. This brings Michael Jordan his first Daytona 500 win on his birthday. And as many people saw, Jim France was in victory lane, shaking hands with everyone, congratulating them. And this is the first points race for 2311 to win of 2026 and since the trial concluded. Tanner, I know you followed the trial a lot. You did a lot of reporting during Grid Tonight during those few weeks. Is this a win that moves the fans, NASCAR, and 2311 and buries the hatchet on the 2025 antitrust lawsuit?
Well, Joe, I'm glad you asked. And yes, I followed the lawsuit between NASCAR, 2311, and Front Row Motorsports very intently over the past 18 months. And let me tell you, I am so glad it is in the rearview mirror. With all that said, as far as the fan base goes, I mean, how do you argue with what an exciting finish that was? Obviously, you know, I think most fans do have alliances with their particular drivers. One of the most popular in the sport, unfortunately, did not make it to the line first today. So I do think there are going to be a fair few people out there that are not going to be pleased with the result, but you can't really help. You can't really help that. So I think if you're talking about the fan base at large, most folks will agree that that was a great finish to the race, and we're all probably glad to see that they didn't throw a caution far too early and end it early and have, you know, a caution-like controversy like they had with Byron and Bowman 2 years ago. As far as 2311 is concerned, I think that this is a huge victory for that organization. Personally, I thought coming down to the wire there, it was probably going to go to Bubba Wallace, but on that final restart, he just did not have the right luck, I guess you can say, in getting to the line first. But his teammates, Tyler Reddick and Riley Herbst, were part of the 8 or 7 car contingent there that were able to fight it out for the win after William Byron rejoined the racetrack at a stupid angle. But, you know, Reddick's drive to the finish, honestly, was very reminiscent of what he did in Homestead a few years ago, where he, you know, coasted around the outside and flew around his competition. And when it came down to the dog leg there between the tri-oval and the finish line there, I was just really impressed by his move to get around Elliott and set him up, because I felt like Chase should have had a better beat on him than that, but at the end of the day, that's not what happened. I think for 2311, the organization, this is massive. Like, obviously, you already had the one crown jewel from last year with Bubba Wallace at the Brickyard, and you had, a number of wins with Reddick where he got put into the championship race in 2024, and Bubba's first and second wins were obviously huge in themselves, but the Daytona 500, you're firmly cemented in the history books forever, and you can't really take that away from them. Obviously, inspection is still ongoing. But with that said, like, this is a monumental victory for that organization, and Toyota as well, who haven't won this event in a good while. I believe they haven't won in the next gen era, so the last one they would have had is Hamlin back in 2020. But as far as burying the hatchet on the 2025 lawsuit, I would really like to hope that hatchet was already buried, but I would, like I said, I'd like to think it was already buried, but if it wasn't, I hope it's even further in the ground than it would have been. So with all that said, if this doesn't move you as a NASCAR fan, why are you watching? To quote Kyle Busch, that was a fantastic race, a really good finish, though I would have liked to have seen it run green to the end instead of the Hamlin-Bell crash that we got that generated a caution. But at the end of the day, Bell's car just would not get back going. So, frankly, there was really not much they could do. So, yeah, all in all, I thought for Tyler Reddick, this is going to be a massive boost for his 2026 after a miserable 2025. And I think it's onward and upward, forward together for 2311.
Absolutely. And it's funny, the forward together. If people don't know, that's obviously one of 2311's mottos. So great wordplay there, Tanner. But I agree with Tanner 100% about that. And I think with, just to mention too, talking about the caution, we'll touch on that a little bit later with NASCAR and their decision making with that. But yeah, for Tyler Reddick, I mean, this is, I would say, the best driver on that team, with all due respect to obviously Bubba, Hyman, Herbst. But Tyler Reddick has the most wins for this organization. And last year, him not winning, I think, caught everyone by surprise. So for him to come out and win probably the most important win now for 2311, you could argue that Bubba's Brickyard was tremendous for them. And then you can argue that, Reddick winning at Homestead again to the championship 2 years ago was tremendous for them. So pretty much their last three wins as an organization just keep making it just more important and more important for them. But for Tyler Reddick, like Tanner had mentioned too, made a hell of a move on Chase Elliott to get by him. And it kind of reminded me too of Chase Elliott not caring when he won, when Hamlin and Bubba got into each other. I believe it was Kansas or Texas, one of the two intermediates to end in the playoffs last year. Chase Elliott was the advantage I guess, of that and got it done. But yeah, this is, in terms of the lawsuit and the fans, thank you, Tanner, was Kansas. Lawsuit and the fans, hope the hatchet was buried. Of course, there was a comment I saw on Facebook that it was something like, oh, Toyota wins and Michael Jordan gets this right after the lawsuit. Of course, this happens. Pretty sure I had a Chase Elliott profile picture. Don't let them rage bait you. It happens. But just do what you got to do as a fan. Don't even acknowledge those types of people who say silly things like that. But I think it's great for the fans, great for NASCAR, especially for 2311. This is a new look forward. Everyone's forward together now from here on out. Good prize money for the 2311 team that lost a lot of it last year. I assume they got that back in the charter lawsuit, at least some of it, especially with like Bubba's Brickyard win, the amount of money they probably ended up getting after the fact. But we don't know the terms of that. I don't think we'll probably ever learn the terms of that. But yeah, shout out. I mean, Tyler Reddick, especially, just to touch on, obviously dealing with what happened to his son Rookie last year at the end of the year, and I'm glad he was there in victory lane smiling with his wife Alexa. I mean, that was just awesome thing to see for this organization. And then Toyota, last thing I'll touch on, I believe this is their 20th year in the Cup Series, if I'm not mistaken.
20th season, yeah.
20th season, thank you. And So for them to start it off with a Tyler Reddick victory, I believe he is now the only Toyota with a Daytona 500 win besides Denny Hamlin. So I think Denny got 3 of them, but I don't think Martin Truex ever won one. Kyle Busch never won one. So
this is 1-0.
Yeah, well, eventually, I feel like that. I don't even know what to say about him. He had a bad race, but yeah, overall, I think it was a great result for NASCAR, especially if you look the other 2 series too. A Ford won the trucks, a Chevrolet won the O'Reilly, and then a Toyota won the Cup. Can't get much better than that with all the parity. It feels like all manufacturers besides Ram and trucks winning. So. I'm excited. I think it was a great race besides the fuel saving. We'll touch on that too. But it ultimately ended with an incredible finish. It really did.
An incredible finish for Tyler Reddick and that team. And, I mean, over $30 million in prize money. That's going to go a long way for that team. And after last year, I think everyone is just excited to talk about the present. 2026, a championship season, and can he maintain the points lead to the chase? In the chat room, encourage everyone to participate in the chat room. From Kid Lantern 27, way to go, Tyler Reddick, the Daytona 500 champion. Baby, let's go. Very excited for Tyler Reddick. That was an insane, crazy, intense, amazing Daytona 500. To see SVG, Justin Allgaier, among others, to lead was awesome. Great effort by Dan. I know for Allgaier, caught up, late block attempt, exited a tri-oval. Collected a lot of drivers, and SVG's day also just did not materialize towards the end. But
I was glad to see Allgaier at least take accountability for that, because I feel like at these kinds of races, you just get a lot of these drivers just being like, oh, it's a racing deal, the ho-hum answer. And it's like, no, there's usually a key person to blame in these kinds of incidents. And unfortunately, in this particular one, Allgaier made a very bad block at a really bad time, and it took out a lot of cars. So it was really, it was very validating for me to see him, hold himself to account more or less. And I think it would be great if we saw more of that going forward, but probably asking too much.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks, it's just one of those deals where we see that kind of move. I mean, the announcer said it, Justin Allgaier said it. And I think it was just good on Justin to say, hey, I messed that up. Could have been a good day for junior motorsports, but it's the nature of the beast when it comes to super speedway racing. Tyler Reddick, the sole survivor of that, with the last lap, that turned to chaos because we had a late caution 10 laps ago, the 5th caution of the day. So we had that, but you got to also backwards to the beginning of the race, 5 laps into the race, Tyler Reddick was involved in that crash. Minor damage. He avoided the big one in stage 2, which of course brought out the other caution, plus your 2-stage caution. So he was involved with almost half of the caution flags today, and he goes out to win, but got minimal to no damage in each of those. Carson Hocevar, talk about a block that didn't go good. Lead in, exited tri-oval. That block was just not going to happen, and Eric Jones was not going to let off or try to square up with it. He's going to try to get around you. We saw that, but no caution. We didn't see a replay on Fox, but online, there are some fans posting videos of that big crash in turn 1. Quite a lot of cars involved. One car did not get going, but we couldn't identify it, but it rolled down to the apron. So we're under an assumption NASCAR just figured everyone will be slowed down by the time to get there. So we saw no caution. Then, of course, the caution comes out as they cross the finish line. Or did it even come out? It just, they crossed the finish line and there was a check flag, but I don't recall the caution lights. But we had that crash as they were entering the tri-oval. But, of course, everyone's coming to the finish. Compared to years past where we had a caution in the backstretch of some hard hits, and then the caution comes out with the leaders in turn 3 or turn 4, and the controversy. Now we're on the situation. No caution came out. Last crash occurred as everyone was approaching the line. But like I said, it seemed like everything from turn 1 had cleared itself. Matt, Did NASCAR make the right call holding off on the caution until the checker flag waved?
I personally think so. Before I go into that, I want to shout out that Spire team of McDowell and Hocevar. They really had some, I guess, lug nuts, for lack of a better term, to stay out and do all that, especially McDowell. And they were doing great. I'm pretty sure they took the white flag with the first and second, or at least right before that, before the accident. So I want to shout out Spire, especially Carson Hocevar. I think ran really well, especially these last. I know he wrecked every single time in the truck race, but yeah, shout out to them. But yeah, I think NASCAR did make the right call personally. I don't know if I think it was Ryan Preece is the driver who went the whole backstretch. It seemed like backwards to cross the line, especially when Tyler Reddick was celebrating. You just see Preece come across the line. Shout out to him for not giving up there either. But I think NASCAR made the right call. They clearly saw that there was no legitimate threat, especially after taking the white flag and knowing that it was far enough into turn 1 or 2 or 3, wherever it was, to where the drivers weren't going to come at them full speed again. And I think that was great. We'll talk about it more on Monday as well, but I think they did kind of similar things with Trucks and O'Reilly. They held off on the caution and waited. And I think this is supposed to set a precedent for NASCAR. It sounds like they're going back to not throwing the super early yellows like they have been, it seems like, in recent memory. So it was cool for them to wait. I don't know, did they throw the checkered flag right before the line? I think it's not listed as a caution in NASCAR's book, so maybe as soon as Reddick crossed the line, they threw it, so it doesn't really count because the race is technically over to an extent. But yeah, I think it was the right call. You have to give credit, I feel, when credit is due to NASCAR, especially with a lot of inconsistencies they've had in officiating the last however many years. But yeah, especially this time, I think they got it right. And I really do hope that they continue to get it right, because we can have the highest of highs, but then we're going to see a call at Echo Park, which is Atlanta, that might be like, why'd they throw that type of thing. So we'll see what happens. But right now, I think we're in the positive momentum for NASCAR officiating.
I did not think that would be a sentence that would be uttered on this broadcast, but I have to agree. So, yeah, I was fully on board with them not throwing a caution. Now, granted, I haven't seen the full wreck from the front stretch, obviously, between Hocevar, McDowell, Jones, and William Byron was kind of part of it. Obviously, I saw that, like, Jimmy Johnson, Ryan Blaney, some guys that were running like in the mid-pack just did not make it back to the line. So definitely we'll want to try to tap in and see that replay. But at the end of the day, I feel like after you cross the finish line, most drivers are slowing down anyway. So I think maybe somebody at NASCAR may have been listening to me complain all last year about early yellows and how we can mitigate that. But obviously I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. With that said, I totally agree with Matthew that if this is the precedent going forward, I think it's a good precedent. I feel like if there isn't an immediate medical need and no car is literally just chilling on the racetrack right past the finish line, then why are we not just running back to the flag on the last lap? Everybody's going to be slowing down anyway. So I'm glad that NASCAR might appear to be embracing common sense, even for a minute. Especially considering, I mean, you know, there's a lot of tinfoil hat folks out there that are like, well, Chase Elliott's leading, they're just going to throw the yellow and give him the win. And that didn't happen. I was frankly a little shocked. I told my wife, I was like, Chase is in the lead. You think they're just going to throw the yellow? And it didn't end up happening that way. And then Chase got involved in another wreck later on in the lap. But, yeah, I appreciated the officiating in this race and most of the weekend. There were a few instances in the O'Reilly and truck races where there were like single car spins or like 2 car spins, but they both went below the apron and were out of everybody's way and out of harm's way. and they just didn't throw the yellow. Like in the truck race, Hocevar's last spin, the first two looked to have been from failed tires, but the third one was contact related. He got it back going and went down pit road, which, one, good character development for Carson to do that. But also good character development from NASCAR to not just, haphazardly throw the yellow out for no good reason. So, yeah, I hope that NASCAR this year will embrace a bit more of a hesitant trigger finger. Obviously, not like Michael Massey working the 12 hours of Bathurst yesterday, because holy cow, what an awful wreck that was. That could have totally been avoided. But yeah, at least in the NASCAR race, there weren't any wrecks where I was just like, why aren't we throwing the caution? Or, why did we throw a caution? Thankfully today, we did not have to have that conversation. And I think the finish of the race and just the state of the race is going to live on in a much more healthy sense, because we're coming out of this with practically zero controversy.
Yeah, and two things, if I can add. One, I'm glad you mentioned, Tanner, if Chase Elliott had the flag had come out. It's important to note, which we're talking about here at Grid Network, is that there are tinfoil hat people on both sides. So if they did throw the caution, the same people or the opposite side of the spectrum there would be like, oh, well, they threw it because of Chase. So it's a never-ending thing. I'm glad you pointed that out. And another thing I wanted to joke with you about is the people listening in were the Hendrick and Byron police that we heard in the pre-race show drive by when we were talking about William Byron. So if you guys didn't hear that, a police siren went by while we were talking about William Byron and Rick Hendrick. So I think they were sent to listen to us here. But that's all I wanted to joke about. I'll throw it to Joe.
I mean, I have to applaud NASCAR, and especially we didn't see like a massive head-on, somebody crash into the wall or a car get airborne. I can understand, okay, you just had a car go airborne, caution has to come out, and I think everybody would get it. But the fact that, Daytona is big enough, you allow the time. I think the Byron police is calling Tanner. We saw where you had the time to allow the track to clear and then the field come by. If this was Bristol, NASCAR is going to be in a harder spot. And I think you brought up the point that there's going to be times where NASCAR is going to have to say, we got to throw the caution. And there's probably going to be fans saying, why did you do that? But it's so circumstance-based. It's not setting a precedence. I think it's more circumstance-based depending on the nature of the crash and the track, a lot of factors. It'll be interesting to see how NASCAR is going to manage this and how the fans will respond to this as this becomes hopefully more of the trend. Let them race to the finish. Now, of course, fuel mileage. If we had overtime, that would have been another big what if, because fuel time was the dominant discussion of what we saw with this race. And that's probably leads me to what I want to talk about next, and that is how this race sort of played out. We had stage 2, where that's where you had the big one exiting the tri-oval when the block by Allgaier went wrong. Plus a smaller crash that took out Briscoe, Dillon, Zilich, really out of contention, just too much damage. Stage 3 was clean until 10 laps ago when Bell and Hamlin made their contact, setting the 5th and final caution. Now, despite saving fuel and all that, still, we tied for the fewest cautions since 2005. 2004 Daytona 500 had 4 cautions, and we've seen the Daytona 500 go caution-free before the introductions of stages. Last year, and even I would say the last couple of years, people have been talking about, is this really a crown jewel event where it becomes a lottery, where it just seems like everybody wrecks? And we did have that last lap where just about everyone wrecked, carnage coming across the finish line. But how has this race compared to last year, where a lot of people were saying Byron was just in the right spot, right time to win when everyone started crashing ahead of him? How does that fit into the discussion about this race being a lottery lately, Tanner?
Well, I would say that this race probably still leans into that a little bit because the top 3 or 4 cars got completely wiped out at the start of the final lap. But compared to Byron last year, where he did not have to do anything to anybody to win that race, he literally just had to watch everybody wreck while he kept the car straight. And Reddick, with just one other car, was not going to generate a run to get past the 24. So I kind of saw it where people were talking about that last year, but this year, I mean, at least the last lap kind of got to play out with some cars racing it out for the finish. I mean, I would have liked to have seen Riley Herbst maybe not try to throw a block on Brad and try to get a push. I would have liked to have seen what the 6 could have done there. I mean, heck, maybe Elliott probably slides up there and gets the push. I do think it's kind of silly for Keselowski after the fact to be all up in arms about the Herbst block. He's trying to win the race, dude, just like you are. So just another one of Dr. Brad's bad takes from the week, but hey, it is what it is. Now, as far as like the lottery of it all, I mean, isn't it ironic that the Chumba Casino car wins the race that's mostly a lottery? Because like I said earlier, you know, after McDowell, Hocevar, and Jones kind of cleared off, Byron was the one driver that kind of escaped that from the bottom line. But unfortunately, he took to the apron, and then by the time that he tried to rejoin the track, he rejoined it onto the banking in the middle of turn 1, which is just about the stupidest place he could have possibly rejoined, and it stunted the momentum of like 8th on back. So honestly, we're lucky we got the finish that we did. With that said, I think that Reddick still used a lot of skill and tactical brilliance to pull that win off, because I mean, as soon as Elliott got out in front on the coming out of turn 2, I was like, this race is over. But then I saw Herbst right behind Reddick, and I was like, well, maybe something can happen here. And lo and behold, it did. Riley Herbst, teammate of the year nominee, I've got to say. So with all that said, I think that, you know, there's definitely still a lottery aspect to it. I still felt like the quality of competition was better today, but the problem is that when it comes down to the last lap like this and you can wad up literally half of the field, it does kind of lose the luster of the race. That said, it's still the Daytona 500. It will always be a crown jewel. It's Bill France's baby, and I think that anyone that tries to, you know, rub some of its luster off with, you know, just calling it a lottery is kind of oversimplifying it a little bit. I do think the way William Byron won the last 2 definitely did not help its reputation, but I think the way Reddick won today was still a testament to the kind of skill it takes to win these races and the type of teamwork it can take to win these races.
Yeah, for me too, I feel like the Daytona 500 is becoming more, like I mentioned in pre-race, that it doesn't seem like you're going to get that guy who has never won or who finishes 28th in points, especially in the 500, because obviously Byron was a top 4 points finisher last year and the year before, I'm pretty sure, or at least top 5. And for him to win back-to-back, obviously the way it happened, it seemed like a lottery. But if you look at these results, I mean, Tyler Reddick has won on super speedways before. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has won the 500 and super speedways. Logano in 3rd won the 500 and super speedways. Chase Elliott has won super speedways. Brad Keselowski, obviously one of the best on super speedways, the top 5. So it feels like for them, it wouldn't have been really a shot in the dark. I guess you could say Stenhouse, even though he has 4 wins and they're all on these types of tracks. So I feel like we're getting a little farther away from that. And I mean, I think we also have to tip our cap. Tyler Reddick is definitely underrated plate racer. He finished obviously second last year, I believe it was, in this race. So for him to come out and win now, and then one of his other wins in previous years was also on a super speedway. So yeah, pretty good for him. Also, I really do want to give a shout out to, like you mentioned, Tanner, Riley Herbst definitely showed he is a team player there. And by doing that, he pushed Tyler Reddick to that win and then tried to go win it on his own. And unfortunately, he didn't see Brad was at his right rear quarter panel and wrecked himself, essentially. And it does bother me that Brad made that comment or just was upset about it. It's like he would have done the same thing. That really is a racing thing. And for Riley Herbst to have a career day, I'm mentioning it in my story that you'll be able to see on gridnetworktv.com post-race. Riley Herbst's really best career finish, most points pretty sure he's ever gotten, most stage points he's ever gotten in a race, and almost had a chance at his top 5. I mean, shout out to that 2311 trio of, not including Heim, but Bubba, Reddick, and Herbst. That's the first time those three have all finished in the top 10 in the same race. So they clearly came out to play. I forgot to mention that earlier. But yeah, I feel like this race kind of showed once again that there could be a lot of lead changes and stuff. But I feel like in the Daytona 500 specifically, a guy who was almost not expected to win, but one of the, I guess, best top fourth, like in the top 25 percentile of the field, is still going to end up winning. And that's just what happens. That's racing for you. It would have been, I think, a lottery if, I know Zane Smith won stage 1, but if he got his first career win, then I think you could say, well, that was probably a little out of the ordinary. And then Riley Herbst obviously would have been a huge upset. I think SVG had better betting odds to start the race. So I think Riley Herbst's odds were like the 38th best of the 41 cars in the field, something along those lines. So I want to tip my cap to him. And it bothered me. Last thing is when Mike Joy said not really a team effort from Toyota because Reddick won, and then the next 2nd through 7th were all non-Toyotas. He said that on the broadcast, and that's why I messaged our Slack chat. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I know Riley Herbst sometimes is a forgettable figure in the sport, but he really, I'm not going to say single-handedly helped Tyler Reddick win that race, but without Riley Herbst in that final push, Reddick would have not won that race, I don't believe. So it's just, I think it's one of those things I know Herbst was bad last year, for lack of a better term, but I think we need to really give him that credit. And if he doesn't do anything all year long and he gets replaced at the end of the year, I think it's important to note that he did what he needed to do. And I think he proved a lot of people wrong, at least in this race. I'm not sure how he'll do at Echo Park and for the rest of the season, but yeah, I think he deserves a shout out about that.
100% agree on the Herbst point. But one thing I wanted to say is I think the reason the 500 has lost a bit of its luster to some people and why it's become more of a lottery is due to the fact that the track surface is still super smooth, and we're 15, almost 16 years past it, like when they repaved it. I think if Daytona can kind of regress back into being a handling based racetrack, you probably have a better product out there. When you have to, take into account tire wear, literally how your car handles, and, all of that good stuff that makes other races a lot more engaging and fun to watch. So, with all that said, I still think the Daytona 500 is the Daytona 500. Its name kind of, precedes anything that happens in the race. But, I think it would truly bring itself back to glory if we could just get the handling aspect of it back into the race, which it currently just does not have a whole lot of. I think we saw hallmarks of it today at times, but at the end of the day, it's still a pretty smooth surface, all things considered, throughout most of the track, which does allow for 3 wide racing, and that's, pretty fun to watch at times. But I got to tell you, that last stage was dragging a little bit while it was still just 3x3x3 going down through the back, and the Toyotas were just kind of hauling. So that's all I wanted to add. Joe, what do you got?
Overall, I've always felt the Daytona 500 is the big race for NASCAR. I mean, the history of it, the significance. A lot of people will put that, of course, as number one. And then a lot of people will put number two, potentially the Southern 500. When you look at the name of the Southern 500, it is a lot of times legends. Very few drivers only win the Southern 500, and that's in their career. There are some. Regan Smith, obviously, won the Southern 500, his only career win. I think a lot of people, especially when you have drivers like Trevor Bayne, that was his only career win. So far, we've seen a couple drivers where it's been the start. For Michael McDowell, was his first career win. For Austin Cindric, it was his first career win. And I feel at least they have gone to get a couple more wins in their career, so it's not just a repeat. If you see a race where it just seems like anybody could win, I can see where maybe a casual fan might be like, this is a bit ridiculous. Maybe some people might even say that about the last lap today. Everyone just wiped out, and these are the best drivers. But this is the Daytona 500. This isn't a race where it's non-points or something and becomes a clown show. This is, you win this race, the biggest prize money, 30+ million. No more when you're in, but still, that points lead is so valuable. And I think, like you said, Matt, with Brad Keselowski being all upset, it's like he's going for the win, Daytona 500. And in fact, I was thinking when that last lap occurred on Chandler Smith, that was behind Chase Elliott, I believe. Or was that a different? I'm getting the two drivers all confused with Front Row Motorsport. But I was thinking, could he be laying off to get Logano to maybe push ahead? But Logano just did not get there in time. I feel like, okay, just the way it worked out.
Yeah, that could have been a factor, but it wasn't. It looked like Brad and Joey ended up working together, which is kind of a fun throwback for Penske fans.
Indeed. So it was overall, I thought it was a good race. I enjoyed it. Just might be part of modern day NASCAR where with this race, the safety measures and all, when you have a car that's more safer and the safer barriers and everything, you're going to get more aggressive drivers, more aggressive moves. We wouldn't see moves like this 25 years ago or back in 94, 93, 92. But it's just modern NASCAR, and they seem to lean into it about the chaos. And the chaos, it definitely came at the last lap. But for most of the race, fuel. Save me fuel, save me fuel. Larry McReynolds even said, if you could come in and make a pit stop, get fuel. But we saw some different stuff. Kyle Busch pitted late in stage one, did not pit when everyone else pitted during that first caution. Michael McDowell capitalized with that late caution, the final caution. Of course, that was not guaranteed. At the end of stage two, though, we did see where some cars, end of stage. Yeah.
One.
At the end of the stage, some cars did run out of gas. Cole Custer, stage 3, came up a little short. And you still had, despite all this, 3-wide action, which visually looks great, 25 different leaders, 65 lead changes. Second most in lead changes. So overall, Matt, do you believe NASCAR should adjust the stage lengths? I know we talked a little bit about it. And do that before we get to Talladega. The next time we're going to be talking about fuel mileage, save fuel from stage 1, 2, part of stage 3, and then go for it at the end.
I think if that's a way to mess with the fact that a lot of them were running 80 or less % throttle, I think they should do it. And we touched on it earlier. It does suck to see. It was pretty awesome, though, to see some of the guys make it all the way through the stage without having to pit. I think that was pretty cool. That was probably one of the more underrated parts. It's that they managed to save the fuel. Just from a logistics standpoint, I thought that was cool. But from a race fan standpoint, that wasn't fun to watch. But I also, before we talk, I want to shout out, speaking of guys like Corey Heim was up front, and he was tasked with the second most important race of his Cup career, I would say, because the truck race, obviously, where he won the championship, was the most important race of his career. But for him to listen to his crew and be like, you only can do this throttle, and him and Bubba and Christopher Bell, they all managed the field pretty well. Looking at the quotes from the Ford and Chevrolet drivers, they didn't appreciate it, but I think they did a good job at, unfortunately, doing that. And just not really a fan of the fuel mileage races, but I think they did a great job at doing it. But hopefully NASCAR can figure out a way to change that so we don't see it. I don't know how they would do it. If you make the stage 1 shorter, but then make stage 2 a little bit longer, and then make stage 3 obviously the longest, they'd have to play with that instead of it being, I believe it was 65, then 130, and then 200. So that's a little different. Maybe if they push it back to 55 and then to lap 120 and then leave the last stage to be 80, enough to where you would split it halfway instead of saving the whole race. But I don't know. I don't work for them. If they're listening, hopefully they change that. That would be cool. But yeah, I think it's one of those things. If they're certain that it will affect what we just witnessed, I think they should go for it. But if it doesn't, then I don't really know what to tell them. I don't know how. You can't really enforce a rule where it's like you have to run 75% throttle the whole race or you're going to get flagged. Saw some silly comments like that on social media. NASCAR really can't enforce 41 or 40 drivers or even 36 drivers to do that. Be like, oh, if you go under 75% throttle for this allotted time, we're going to penalize you. I don't really think they can do that, and that's a real comment I saw. I didn't pull that out of nowhere. I don't think I would be able to even think of a comment like that. But yeah, they got to figure out a way to do it. It did lead to a lot less cautions, which I'm always a fan of. But like Tanner had mentioned, the last stage kind of was just like, oh, when's it going to get busy? And then it got busy and it was exciting. But that's because they were going 100% all out and not just chilling, riding behind all the Toyotas up in the front. So, yeah, that's how I feel about that. They should change something.
I think the problem really boils down to something we talked about in the pre-race where it just didn't seem like even if you did decide to go 100%, that you could really pull away with like a group of cars. It certainly seemed like in the last stage that tried to happen, but it just didn't materialize. So for me, I have always been a big proponent. If we are going to keep stage racing, especially in the road courses and crown jewels, then they need to be adjusted. If we're going to keep 3 stages, we need to adjust the lengths. So here's what I have always recommended. And I have an article about this from 2024 on pitboxpress.com if you are intent on reading about it. We'll probably try to link it here in the comments, but essentially I think a better spread would be a 10% of the race distance first stage, a 20% race distance second stage, and then you have the meat of the race being 70% for the final stage. I think that is a much better split and achieves everything that they already do with the stage system, just in shorter form. Not only that, it gives more credence to the final stage, which is a larger portion. And ultimately, if it was, say, 20, then 40, you have 140 laps to run over the final stage. So think about that for a second. The cars probably went, we'll say in some cases over 50 laps on fuel. You could have somebody out there trying to pull a 2-stopper, but most cars are pulling a 3. So in that event, I think we probably get a much more, we'll say, scintillating event where you have drivers actually, making moves throughout the first and second stages. Maybe we end up with more crashes that way. That's certainly possible. But I think a lot of what we saw today in terms of the more, I would say, conservative driving doesn't really do it justice, doesn't really describe what it was. But the more restrained driving that we saw today probably had less to do with, fuel mileage than it did self-preservation for points. I think A lot of drivers were trying to be cognizant of where they were in the running order and all of that coming down to the finish of the race. And, you know, credit to some of them, it worked out for them. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like most of us want to see these drivers actually making moves and racing each other rather than just communally saving fuel. So, with all that said, NASCAR, if you're listening, please take my 10, 20, 70 rule. It would be a much better product for you, I promise.
I was going to say, do you think they should add a stage like they do in the Coke 600?
No, I think that race is for stupid too. I would much rather that race, like, if they are going to have 4 stages regardless, you could do a 10, a 20, and then another 20% stage. So in that race, it would be a 40, then an 80, and then another 80, and then you have 200 laps for the final stage. I think people would like that a lot more. I certainly would.
That's the thing. I feel 3 stages is enough. If we could drop the Coca-Cola 600 to 3 stages, in my opinion, you're going to get a better race. And granted, the track product is good. The cars are on the razor edge of control. It's the same strategy every year. Break the stage in half, pit, stage break, pit. Remove a stage. We'll have an extra long final stage where it's going to come down to when do you stop? Because that caution may come out. You come out during the caution cycle. A lot more open areas for the women call strategy to really shake up the race as the race in action, whether it's a natural caution or what, moves things around. So it's always something I think should be done. Well, 2026 is officially now underway. The race to the chase is going ahead forward. The top 10, we're still waiting for official NASCAR word on the results, but this is the top 10 finishers. So we know there's some points from the duels that will impact, change some positions here and there, plus the stage points as well. Top 10 finishers: Reddick, Stenhouse, Logano, Elliott, Keselowski, your top 5. Right now, the top 10: Smith, Buescher, Herbst, Berry, Wallace. Tanner, how big is this for a driver, say, like Stenhouse, Smith, Herbst, where they're not exactly the winning contenders week in and week out, but now they get a good shot of, hey, we're in a good spot points-wise. We got to be in the top 16, as not we could get knocked out because there's 15 different winners. It's if we're consistent, we could be in this hunt. Does that make a big difference for these teams?
I mean, I think they're coming out of this weekend feeling a lot better, even with a wrecked race car in the instance of Stenhouse, who finished second, but the car is cooked. I think it makes him feel a lot better than someone like Ryan Blaney, who did get good stage points, but got wadded up in that last lap crash on the front stretch. But, I mean, at the end of the day, someone like Ryan Blaney can go out there and go win another race. So races like these can kind of be flushed down the toilet and put in the rearview mirror. For someone like Stenhouse, who is not in the greatest equipment, is not extremely well funded. In fact, at Loudon last year, they had to slap, the team's, graphics on it basically to get it into the race. That's obviously not ideal. I think that this could be a great start to the season for them. I think that they need to capitalize at Atlanta as well, or Echo Park. I'm not going to call it that, y'all. I'm just not going to do it. But with that said, someone like Riley Herbst, someone like Zane Smith, this is going to be a big propellant through the first 5 or 6 weeks of the regular season to keep them, hoisted up in the point standings. But the problem is you just got to keep that performance going. And frankly, with most of those guys mentioned, Stenhouse, Smith, and Herbst, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of high hopes that they're gonna stay there by the time we get to like Talladega. So it's a great result for them, even if the car ended up on the wrecker. But at the end of the day, a great result is a great result. You just kind of have to put that feather in your cap and move on and capitalize on it. And it remains to be seen if they're going to be able to do that. But hey, best of luck to them.
I agree with that. It's one of those things where, like you had mentioned, Stenhouse, Smith, Herbst. I would argue Josh Berry too. Besides, now that there's no winning in, aren't really expected to be up in the top 16 when the chase comes around. But for all of them to start out and do that, it's pretty impressive in my opinion. So Riley Herbst, this is a make or break year for that kid. He say that as he's older than me, but Zane Smith, I think, has earned a spot in the sport. I just think front row's equipment just needs to get better, and I think it will. I think he's probably the best driver on that team, though. I mean, no offense to Todd Gilliland or Noah Gragson, but Zane Smith, I think, is a better driver than both of them. And then Ricky Stenhouse, like Tanner had mentioned, that team, there were so many rumors even last year where they were like selling and stuff like that. And I know they had an ownership change, but they were going to be like gone maybe completely from the sport. And for him to go out and finish second the Daytona 500 the following year, it's like I tip my cap to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And he did pretty decent in his debut Truck Series race too. I believe he was sixth, something like that, top 10, unless he got wrecked. I really can't remember at this point. But yeah, I think he did a good job this weekend. I know it might be a little bit harder for them, like Tanner had mentioned, for a team like Stenhouse to leave the track wrecked, finishing second versus a team like Ryan Blaney, who Ryan Blaney is probably going to win 3 races this year. And then he leaves this race wrecked too. But yeah, so those guys specifically, I think Herbst, Smith, Barry, and even Stenhouse have to go into whether you want to call it Atlanta Motor Speedway, Echo Park Speedway, Atlanta's Echo Park Speedway, you name it. I feel like they got to go in there and do the same thing and try to go out and compete again. But yeah, that's really all I have for that. I'll be interested to see the points for the chase. I think Reddick, obviously, now that the leaders get rewarded more, I think he'll be first. I think Joey Logano with his dual win is going to be a very close second. And
Elliott too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I think those 3, Reddick, Logano, Elliott, are probably going to be the top 3 in points. Then those other guys really didn't have great stage race. I believe I was writing in my story.
Did, but yeah.
Who did? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Zane won stage 1, but yeah, other than those 4.
Sorry, the duel. That's my apologies. I think of the... Well, Brad did well in the duel, too. So I was writing in my story, which you guys will see, of the top 10 finishers, only 3 of them qualified inside the top 10. And that was Logano, Elliott, and Keselowski all qualified inside the top 10. Everyone else was outside. So those guys will all have extra dual points going into the point standings. And I also do want to shout out Josh Berry. NASCAR Insights posted while we've been on air that of there are 45 cars entered in this weekend for the Cup Series. Obviously, 4 didn't make the Daytona 500, and then Jimmy Johnson being the extra one. Josh Berry was the only driver in the NASCAR Cup Series to not be involved in any incidents over the 2 dual races and the Daytona 500. So I think that's I don't know how you look at that. If you look at NASCAR, you're like, crap, 44 guys had to go home with some sort of damage in one of our 3 events. But then you look at the Wood brothers and Josh Berry, it's like, hell yeah, right? Like, we didn't hit anything. We finished in the top 10. That's a great start, especially with that iconic throwback scheme they got. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to Josh Berry before I throw it over to Joe.
Yeah, Josh Berry, even though he has Penske equipment through that Penske Alliance, last year, after that win, and we thought, okay, this could be the breakthrough, just wrong place, wrong time, involving multiple cautions, and just seemed to have the worst luck. All of a sudden, to start the year, and hey, we didn't get involved in a single incident. We're making a good start. Was up there competitive all day. See what you guys can do. So it'll be really fun to see how that team could go through the year. And then I'm just excited that we're going to be talking about point standings. I know Still no word about official results yet, but once we get them, we'll probably have it scrolled across at the bottom of the screen if the NASCAR results come in officially with no changes. If there's any change, most likely we're going to be breaking that news as we're on the air right here. With that said, we're wrapping up our Daytona 500 coverage. Encourage everyone, subscribe, hit the bell icon, because Matt and Tanner will be on the air tomorrow with Grid Rising, our brand new program. A lot to cover from Daytona with the O'Reilly series, Craftsman Truck series, and the Arca Menard series. And of course, you could subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss the notification when they go on the air tomorrow right here on our YouTube channel. And of course, you stream on Twitch or YouTube. You can view there as well. We'll see you both for the shiny moment. Kobe, let's get started with some Formula E racing action.
Yeah, and we're 5 races into the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship season, and the first doubleheader weekend of 2026 in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. 2 past world champions claimed their first victories of the year, and one has claimed the points lead, and that's Pascal Wehrlein, who won the first race of the weekend in his Porsche. Then Antonio Felix da Costa won the second race in his first as a Jaguar driver. The win puts da Costa 7th in the standings, only 29 points away from the lead. And 50 points separate the top 10 in the Formula E standings after 5 races. So looking at Pascal Wehrlein, he's the only driver to score points in all 5 races so far this year. Joe, does Wehrlein's start of the season reflect Oliver Rowland's championship season of consistency? And do you think that's where he could potentially go?
I do see that right now. He has that consistency, and that's going to be very valuable. I think Oliver Rowland showed that last year. We've talked so much about how this could be the series where if somebody was consistent, they could start to pull away. He's not exactly at the level of pulling away, but if he continues this after 6 races, 7 races, 8 races, I mean, we only have 17 races in Formula E, then we could really talk about he's putting the distance on everyone else if they're not consistent. I really like what's going on with Wehrlein so far. The other drivers, I do think, need to step it up. But this is something where I feel Formula E sort of likes this because they always are bragging about how this is so competitive. It's always close. But at the same time, I always wish we had a little bit more consistency, because when it comes to like the grid ranking, Formula E is usually towards the bottom. When it comes to, I think, fans taking Formula E seriously, when it feels a little bit too randomized, too much like a lottery, then it just feels like, okay, it doesn't get that same amount of respect like it should. Oliver Rowland, last year, the consistency, great effort by him and that team. I love to see what they could do this year with that team. And if anyone could really just then step it up. Nick Cassidy looked good in Mexico. Okay, haven't been consistent enough, lost the points lead. Mitch Evans looked great the last race weekend at Miami. Doesn't have the consistency. Antonio Felix da Costa, lousy start to the season. First 3 rounds, 0 points. Well, he changed that. He needs to keep that positive momentum going. So it'll be really interesting to see how they all shape up this next few races, because if Pascal Wehrlein could just, again, finish in the points, he's going to build himself a lead where it then sends out a big message to the teams, step it up or I'm running away with this championship.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, looking at the championship standings right now, nobody's running away with the championship at the moment. It's still very much wide open. I wanted to ask you a quick follow-up question, Joe, since it's in our video description for tonight. So I figured I'd ask you as well. It's pretty remarkable after the first 5 races that Wehrlein is the only one who scored in every round. And then you look at all the others, it seemed like one weekend someone's a hero, and then the next week there's 0. It's just really crazy seeing how unpredictable Formula E is. I remember a few years ago we had this thing called the Formula E Wheel of Destiny, where you basically just pick a name out of a hat of who could win a Formula E race because it was so hard to find someone who was consistently dominant and strong. You had like a different winner every other race. So Joe, based on what you've seen so far in his first 5 races, do you think that Great Network is going to bring back its Formula E Wheel of Destiny?
I've really been debating it. There was a couple times in the past season where we felt like it's just getting that random, but then somebody will step through. Oliver Rowland last year, he just showed like he could get it done. Let's see how this next race goes. If we get another different winner and another points leader, then I feel like you're going to see someday, hey, everyone, the Wheel of Destiny is available for you to spin the wheel for your pick winner for Formula E, because sometimes that's how it feels like. So Formula E Wheel of Destiny, let's see what happens, to be determined.
Yeah, for sure. And the question before last, I asked, does this reflect the start of Oliver Rowland's championship winning season of consistency? And if last year's version of Oliver Rowland was the definition of consistency, so far he's kind of been the definition of inconsistent. 5 races, 3 podiums, really good, but 2 finishes outside of the points. Do you think Rowland and Nissan should be concerned, or are those 2 finishes outside of the points, not really a big deal right now?
So that's the thing. If you just look at this season, it's like, hey, you got 3 podiums and you missed out on the top 10 because only the top 10 scores points. But when you look at the bigger picture, counting last year, consistent, podium, win. But then it seems like when we got towards the end, when the championship was about to be clinched, missed points here, missed points there. But it was at the point, it's like, okay, maybe they're just being more conservative. The championship's wrapped up. No concern. But when you look at that tail end of last season and then this season, it doesn't seem like the consistency is there at all for Oliver Rowland. So I am a little bit on the concern side that, okay, you're now 5 races in. We're going to be coming up to race number 6. Let's try to get points again. Because if you keep up this pattern of podium, no points, podium, no points, you get a driver like Pascal Wehrlein, he's going to pull away. Eduardo Montara, Mahindra, look at what that team has been doing. Again, has a race where he has missed the points, but he is up there, having one of his better seasons, and it's been quite a few seasons since we've seen him as a championship contender. When you then look at a driver like Nick DeVries, who just had a rotten weekend here, just not scoring points and just not having it good. Oliver Rowland has to step it up, in my opinion. I think Nissan has to say, okay, we just need to make sure we score points from here on out. What an effort by that team if they could just start putting it together, amount of challenge. More wins? Hey, that's great. You could get more and more wins. But if you're going to go win, podium, miss the points, DNF, miss the points, DNF, you're not going to claim a championship.
Yeah, for sure. And the way I look at it, I think 3 podiums, it shows great strength from a driver and a team. Oliver Rowland so far doesn't look as dominant as he was last season so far, but it's still very early. Those 2 finishes outside the points could very well, be 2 mulligans, and then he could be consistent the rest of the way. So if I'm Nissan or Oliver Rowland, I'm not really concerned the way things are. Right now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens later on in this Formula E season and putting a bow on everything that happened in Jeddah. Let's switch to the World Rally Championship, Rally Sweden. I hate there was so much going on this weekend because this is one of my favorite rallies all year. Rally Sweden with all the snow, and then Safari Rally Kenya. Love those 2 rallies. I have to catch some highlights, of all the action after this, but we saw Elfyn Evans. He had a big breakthrough, getting his first win of the 2026 season. Once again, Toyota swept the podium, and Oliver Solberg finished fourth, about 30 seconds behind them. It was all the Hyundai drivers. I don't know what happened to Hyundai. They were completely off in this rally. I guess they were out to lunch. So my question for you, Joe, is this a sign that this year's WRC season will witness a Toyota runaway? And it just makes you wonder if Hyundai is not competitive. Like, we've heard the rumors that they could potentially be getting out of the World Rally Championship. So, like, if they're going to be this slow and not be competitive, what's the point of sticking around?
And that is becoming a concern for me, is this rumors may come true. Your program's not doing well. You're getting dominated. Look at other motorsports ventures. Leave for a Rally Championship. That would be detrimental to World Rally Championship when you only have Ford M Sport, Hyundai, and Toyota Gazoo Racing. And Toyota Gazoo Racing just looked unstoppable this weekend. The top 4 positions. Elfyn Evans, what an effort by him to make a statement that, okay, I'm still got it. What happened last year, losing to Sebastian Ogier, I'm going to prove I'm going to bring the fight to Oliver Solberg, my brand new teammate, and everybody else. I'm a contender for this championship. But that's it. I think the contenders are only going to be Toyota drivers. Unless Hyundai changes something drastically, we're running out of races where I feel like, okay, the Africa Safari Rally, that could be one race where it could be wide open. But then when we come to some of the traditional stops, I feel like Toyota has to be the favorite. And this could be a runaway season. And dominating a season, that's great. Some people hate it. Some people love it. I think that's good for motorsports to see a team once in a while dominated. But when it's entirely one manufacturer, Toyota, 4 different drivers, the other 4-car team, Hyundai, is just that far behind. And M Sport, I feel their chance of podium and wins is if bad luck happens. Then you start wondering, is this series in trouble? Is it competitive enough? And that's why I think World Rally Championship, especially with the change in cars, they might be starting to worry a bit, like the direction of this. What's the way forward for the series if we lose Hyundai and we're down to 2 and really one of them, it's a major leg up.
Yeah, Joe. It's really crazy, see one manufacturer dominating, like this in World Rally Championship. We still have a very long World Rally Championship season to go. This is only round 2 of 14, and the next one is my other favorite rally on March 20th through 23rd, the Safari Rally Kenya, and then we don't even finish the season until late November in Saudi Arabia. So there's still a long way to go, but it looks like the Toyota rally races have the edge right now, and they're going to be, very well. Actually, I'm actually looking at the wrong calendar, Joe. So excuse me with that. So yeah, but we still have Safari Rally Kenya is March 12th through 15th. I was accidentally looking at the 2025 calendar, but forget we're in 2026, and the season actually ends November 11th through 14th. So I'm glad I caught that one right on the fly. But as I was saying, is we have a long way to go in this World Rally Championship season. But it looks like the Toyota contenders are really going to be up there fighting for the win week in and week out. And, you feel bad for the Thierry Neuvilles of the world. Who knows if he was in a good enough rally car, he would be up there fighting with them. And Adrian Formeau. You have Esa Lapi, Danny Sordo's a part of the lineup later in the season as well. There's a lot of good rally racers over there with Hyundai, and it's unfortunate they're not going to be able to show what they're able to do. And also not to disrespect the M Sport Ford team, but I just have to say they don't have top tier rally riders in their lineup. So and if they had a competitive product, they would certainly be able to attract some. But if you're not competitive, who's really going to want to go out there, and compete? Because you're really just out there just participating. You're not actually, contending for anything. And like I said, I believe the last time we talked about World Rally Championship, I honestly forgot Ford was a part of the series. I truly forgot they were a part of it because we hardly ever talk about them on the show since they never, do anything notable. And you had something you wanted to add about Ford?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up about how it just seems like Ford has gone down, and why would you be there? And it was not too long ago they had Sebastian Loeb win the first race, Rally Monte Carlo, with Ford running part-time. They had Autonic left Toyota to go there. And I thought Ford is going to make progress. They're going to come back. And it has not gone well, to the point where Autonic left. Sebastian Loeb's gone. And now it just seems that team is just falling further behind. I think that's part of also the issue with World Rally Championship. Ford is really not a contender. You lose Hyundai. What are you going to have in competition? Is it just all Toyota? Or will somebody come in? There's always rumors, and especially with the rumors of a United States round World Rally Championship. We'll see, but it's not a pretty picture for World Rally Championship, in my opinion.
Yeah, World Rally Championship has a lot to figure out in the future, and we'll see if they'll be addressing those concerns at any point later on in the season in regards to about 2027 and beyond. And we're almost out of time for tonight, so we'll bring Matthew and Tanner back on so we can get to our Grid One shining moment from this racing weekend. We had a lot of racing going on across the globe. We also had the Daytona 500. We had the Formula E Jeddah E Prix doubleheader. Yes. Rally Sweden, and if you follow sports car racing, the Bathurst 12-hour was on as well, streaming on GT World. And let us know down in the chat below what's your Grid One shining moment from this racing weekend. And I guess we'll start with you, Joe. What's your moment?
Oh man, my shining moment, I would have to say, and I think it's the obvious one for a lot of folks, the winner of the Daytona 500, Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick had a brutal 2025 season. We know the stories of the lawsuit going on. We were wondering, is that a distraction? Is that something that's taken away a little bit from his team? Then we hear about the medical condition of his newborn and the stress that has to go through as a parent, something I can't fathom. It's just something where that team went through a lot. Yes, they got a win. Well, their teammate got a win at the Brickyard 400, but they did not get the win. Things didn't seem to go right. But now they start the season with a win at the Daytona 500. That's going to set them off on the right path with momentum. The momentum could potentially carry through, and I think this could be the return of a dominant 45, or at least a team that week in and week out we'll be talking about they're contending for a win.
Yeah, I really can't disagree with that. I think Tyler Reddick, obvious, especially what they were able to do. I think that's probably my one shining moment too. I want to touch on two things. One, Chumba Casino, I think, is pretty cool. As you notice, Monster Energy wasn't on Tyler Reddick's car, and I think a lot of that might be just the way branding deals and stuff work. So they were absent, and for him to go out and get one of the team sponsors, Chumba Casino, who came on board last year, had the Brickyard 400 win with Bubba Wallace as a primary, and then to win arguably the second most important crown jewel. You could argue 7,500. So a top 3 crown jewel, I would argue. There's really not that many, but you guys know what I mean. Then to go win the Daytona 500 as a primary sponsor. I think a lot of people will go out and download Chumba Casino, the app. So I think that's cool. But I think my one shining moment for the whole weekend, I know Tanner and I will touch a little bit more on Grid Rising, the premiere episode. But I think all the teams kind of involved in the lawsuit, being able to get it done with Front Row Motorsports, obviously with Chandler Smith winning the truck race, along with Zane Smith having a great run in the Cup Series, Daytona 500, obviously. But then in the O'Reilly race, Austin Hill putting belt to butt, as he usually does. I know there was Richard Childress mentioned in the lawsuit, calling him a bunch of names. So for them to go out and win, I thought that was cool. And then same with, obviously, at Cup level, 2311, having those 3 guys. I believe it's the first time they've ever had 3 guys inside the top 10 in a race. So they pretty much showed out. And Denny Hamlin was asked about that too, and post-race in the interview as the car owner, obviously. They asked him, just to remind you, Front Row won on Friday, Richard Childress won Saturday, you guys won Sunday. All those were a part against a lawsuit against NASCAR, and he laughed and said, all we do is win. So that's kind of how I'll leave that one. So that's my 1 plus probably 4 shining moments. I'm interested to hear what the rest of us have.
Yeah, so I'm actually going with Reddick's teammate Bubba Wallace, the lap leader of today's Daytona 500. Logged a significant portion of those in the final stint of the race. And, he put on a great drive, and it's just a shame that he did not get a chance to finish the job on that final lap because factors outside of his control kind of got in his way. But I really don't think that the result really tells the whole story of the 23's Daytona 500 in 2026, but it's just emblematic of the kind of super speedway drafting track style driver that Bubba Wallace is. He is one of the best in the sport at these kinds of tracks, and he continues to prove that year in and year out. And I mean, this is a guy who has a remarkable record of finishing the 500 compared to most of his, colleagues in the sport. So, with all that said, I think Bubba Wallace, though he came home 10th and unfortunately leading laps doesn't really do anything for you nowadays, I think that he has nothing to be ashamed of for the performance and the effort he put in today, and hopefully he can regroup and go to Atlanta with a fresh mindset. And based on how his mindset was last year, I think he will be firmly out of the fog that was Daytona today and put his full foot forward for Atlanta next week.
And for my shining moment, I'm going to go a little bit different from you guys. I know it's going to sound weird because I was just criticizing their World Rally Championship program, but my shining moment is actually going to go to Ford. It's going to all the people who work at Ford Racing who build safe Ford Mustang GT3 cars. Because if you watch the Bathurst 12-hour, Christopher Mees is very lucky to be alive, and speaking after what had happened. It was during the early morning hours of the Bathurst 12-hour, and Christopher Mees, he was doing the early morning stint, and he hit a huge kangaroo, and like the impact was like so bad it destroyed the front end of the car. Like parts of the kangaroo went inside the cockpit, and Christopher Mees was covered in kangaroo blood and guts as he described in an interview, and he said he showered twice and he still could not get the smell of blood and guts out of his nostrils. So yes, and you can imagine how traumatizing that can be for him. I know the footage is not good, but there's footage out there of this incident but it's hard. Thankfully it's hard to see because it's dark outside, but you can see the kangaroo hopping in front of Mises' car, and then it just like explodes. It was just, a really gruesome scene, and I'm really happy that Ford built a safe race car because if they hadn't have, I'm afraid it could have been a very bad situation for Christopher Mees. It's just stunning to see the destruction of the front of that Ford Mustang. The entire front's destroyed. It's crazy how that parts of the kangaroo went through the windshield. That's just crazy to me. I've never seen anything like that at all in all of my years of watching motorsports. So just wanted to give a shout out to Ford for building an extremely safe race car to allow Christopher Mees to walk away from an incident like this, because I'm sure this is probably something that we'll either never see again or won't see again for a long time. Because I mean, when you look at Mount Panorama, and when you see the series that have raced there in the past, including Supercars Championship for the Bathurst 1000, of course you see cautions and stuff for kangaroos and stuff like this, but you don't ever see certain situations like what we saw with Christopher Mees and this large kangaroo that Ford said that he hit. So hate it for the kangaroo, obviously, but really happy that Christopher Mees is able to walk away from this.
Hate it for the kangaroo is killing me.
Something else where motorsports, we always remember stuff like the bird getting hit at Daytona by Dale Earnhardt or a groundhog by F1 car in Canada. A kangaroo is something else, and I know it's the dark day, so it was probably harder for everyone to see it coming, but just like you said, the safety that goes into it, and of course, just a big thank you to everyone that makes motorsports safe and possible. The marshals, they're all volunteers. They all do a great job. I know there's some controversy about what led to a big crash in that Bathurst 12 hours, but I can only imagine race control and hopefully the marshal will talk about how do we prevent something like that from happening again. With that said, friendly reminder, upcoming week for us, we're going to have Grid Rising tomorrow, the premiere episode. Matt and Tanner will be hosting that, recapping all the action in Daytona from the NASCAR Rally Series, Craftsman Truck Series, and the ARCA Menard Series. So be sure to tune in 7 p.m. Eastern right here on the Grid Network. Subscribe, hit that bell icon so you don't miss that program. Wednesday, Grid Tonight, Kobe will be on the air to recap all the latest news from in your weekly motorsports news program with Josh and Matt. Plus,
Uh-oh.
Did Joe disappear?
I think Joe is frozen out.
Well, since Joe is frozen out, hopefully he'll come back. But as we said, looking at our upcoming schedule, obviously, Tanner, Matthew, there's a lot of excitement tomorrow. About Grid Rise, and I'll be there. I'll be there watching. Really excited to see what you two are able to do with this program tomorrow and all throughout the 2026 racing season. And then Wednesday Grid tonight. Who knows what the top headline's going to be? Don't really know what that is right now, but I'm sure we'll have some news between now and Wednesday that we'll be able to discuss. And where is this graphic? Oh yeah, right here. I was looking for the graphics. So I'm not familiar with Grid Live, but want to give a big thank you to our Patreon supporters, Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, Crystal, and our newest investor, Nico. We really appreciate everything you guys do to keep us on the air and give us opportunities to bring you amazing content, and also all the people who have bought us coffees over the last several years or so. Really appreciate you guys as well. And also be sure to follow us all across social media. We're on all of these different platforms. And if you like what you saw tonight, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. Hopefully by the end of the year. It'd be great if we get there, even sooner. But we're on the road to 2,000, and that's our next goal here at Grid Network. And I believe that's all we have for tonight, guys. So for Joe Samniego, Tanner Smith, and Matthew Bro, I'm Cubby Lambert from Grid Tonight. We all hope you have a wonderful night and have a wonderful week ahead.